beautiful friends. Welcome back to another episode of Random Thoughts Some Useful, where the thoughts are totally unplanned, often random, but somehow always useful. I'm your host, Jen Brown, cancer survivor, empowerment coach, and lifelong truth seeker. Around here, nothing's off limits. We talk about gut health and God, mindset and medical gaslighting, frequency, food, and all the quiet ways we come back home to ourselves. Most episodes, no script, no agenda, just a mic, a moment, and whatever truth needs to come through. So if you're craving something real, something that reminds you of who you are, what matters, and how to rise, you're in the right space. Like, share, and subscribe if something lands. And if you want to support the podcast or buy us a cup of coffee, you can cash app us at Apothecaring Jen. Let's get into it. What if healing didn't have to be so complicated? In this episode of the Bro Sessions, my baby brother and I take it all the way back to gut health, the Bible, and the basics. We unpack what real health looks like when you stop outsourcing your intuition and start trusting what's been true all along. Raw milk, butter, sourdough, salt, honey, and a big helping of bullshit we've had to unlearn. We talk gut health, probiotics, iron levels, hormone suppressants, and how they might be suppressing more than just your hormones, intuitive living, medical gaslighting, and what it takes to break free from systems that benefit from disconnection. This is one for the misfits, the questioners, the ones tired of being sick, tired, and confused.
Like, I'm not opposed to just going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I mean, it is better to have family close by. You know, you don't have to travel as much if you decide to travel for holidays, but...
Right.
You know, I just don't...
We're recording now.
I just don't really feel tied to here.
Yeah. You know, I don't either anymore. I mean, things aren't... I mean, maybe if, Grandma and Grandpa were still around, we still had that place or, something like that. But I feel like once we moved away from where we grew up is when, and that's when I moved away too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've lived all over the place. And, I mean, home is where you make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And home is different nowadays too. Today I was thinking I needed to do a video that I could put up on TikTok. I do these little shorts every once in a while, and about the job of raising kids, about the job of being a stay-at-home mom and like doing what Kayla's doing. Like it literally is the most important job that there is. Mm-hmm. To take care of kids and to raise them well and to make sure that they grow up loved and feel like they were, had support that they could go to it's interesting because we had so much support around us. We literally grew up right next door to our grandma and grandpa. But I didn't feel like I had any support at all, that I could go to anyone about anything growing up. And I don't know if it's because we came from a different era of kind of like kids are to be seen, not heard, or what. I'm not sure how all that happened.
I think that generationally human beings have learned to interact with other ages of human beings in different ways. It's just, from learned experience and just like recreationally, we don't do the same things necessarily.
Right.
That we used to back in the early 1900s or, obviously some aspects. Fishing, hunting, probably some type of board game, card game, whatever. But, everything is so electronics based right now. So people just behave differently because of that. But also due to the dissemination of information and the speed of transfer of information nowadays, we just are able to see the world in a different way than I think a lot of generations probably before us saw, just as a whole. And then you're able to learn from other people's learned experiences by being shared online one way or the other.
Right.
So then
Information is so much more accessible.
Right. So generations now, like
Different
let's just
perspectives.
Say parents, different, you just are able to have access to so much more information comparatively to what generations in the past did. But they were more wise or more knowledgeable in other things. You know what I mean?
Right.
We've become very...
kind of watered down in a lot of ways, too. So many different things. Well, like I've mentioned it before. I don't know if I have on the podcast, but I know I've had this conversation with somebody before. Like, I feel like as challenging as rigidity can be sometimes, I really respect the hell out of people that are rigid. Like, when they really believe so deeply the way that they do. And we need people like that, especially when it comes to like moral conviction and that kind of stuff, because I feel like it helps hold the balance of the world, right? Like, I feel like what we were just talking about, as as the generations grow, whatever, things become a little bit watered down when it comes to morals and character. And what the heck is it? A bee or something? Or is it like a snake?
Wasp.
Oh.
Big yellow jacket, man. Like
God.
huge. Came out of the ground and my foot was over his hole.
Jeez, you scared me too.
Yeah,
Absolute
dude,
death.
I couldn't tell what was touching my foot, and then I was like,
Lord.
geez.
I thought it was a snake.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Well, dude, it felt like a snake underneath my foot. That was the biggest yellow jacket or wasp or whatever
Like,
that thing was.
tickling you?
Hornet. Man, I'm telling you, he was this big.
Oh, Lord. That's creepy. Snakes are the things that freak me out the most. You want to go inside?
I just wasn't.
And what's weird about snakes is they're supposed to represent like wisdom and like transformation and all this stuff. They're supposed to be really good.
Lied about that in the past.
and wrote it down for all of us to believe.
Right? I don't know. We didn't have big brothers to do that. And I don't feel like I did that to you. I hope not. I wanted to be by myself as much as possible growing up. So, and then I'm now looking back, like, that's just my nature. It wasn't necessarily because I hated everyone. It's just my nature. Like, I'm an introverted person. I don't enjoy being around others a lot. You know what I mean? No, you don't. We've talked about this because you're not like that. We're opposites. You're an extrovert. You like to be around others. Quality over quantity, of course. Not just be around others, but...
I used to, for sure. That was definitely a part of my life there for a long while. Especially growing up, I wanted to be around my friends all the time because that's where I got the most enjoyment.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then playing sports so much, you're just constantly around people, But then when I was at home, I wanted to be alone for the most part. I mean, it was really the only option.
Yeah.
But now, I don't necessarily need to be around very many people. I'm kind of an introvert now. I think I've shifted. I still can handle, and I do well in social situations for the most part, the ones that I want to be in, you know what I mean? I think the more that you become more aware of yourself and aware of others and aware of how other people's energy affect you, that you just choose to interact with certain situations based upon that energy. And I know there's a lot of people that would love to have the family that we have or the friends that I've had in the past or whatever, but at the same time I just choose to do things differently and spend my time differently. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with resentment or spite or anything like that, or the judgment that I have for others or friends that I've had in the past or what they're doing. It's just that
protective of your energy.
Yeah, so even with conversations anymore, I've just gotten to the point where if people, depending on the setting and depending on the conversation interaction, like if it's just me and one other person and a question is asked and I give my answer and they don't necessarily agree with it, you know what I mean? Well, I just gave you my answer not because I'm trying to, be a rebel. I'm just telling you how I feel. And, and so in those types of settings, I'll definitely carry on a conversation and back up my points and give information and reasoning as to why I believe what I believe. But depending, but then there's other conversations that I've been in that I have just chose to, I get what you're saying. I understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's almost like picking your battles with your kids. There's so many things I will entertain or get involved in or this kinds of things.
And so
this day and age.
You can usually gauge what people believe and what they understand based on their actions. You know what I mean? So you can just, over the years, I've learned who I can have a conversation with and who it's probably not worth the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. And so that's interesting that the conversation has went in this direction because, so introvert, extrovert, ambivert, a lot of times introverts are actually
Is ambivert like an omnivore?
Kind of. You can do both. No, omnivore is vegetarian. Ambivert.
No, omnivore.
Right?
You've got herbivore, omnivore, and carnivore. So an
omnivore
is
both.
the medium.
Yes, so that's exactly what an ambivert is.
That's why,
Yeah, so, but I, what was I saying? Dang it.
It's interesting that the conversation has gone this way.
Oh, so introverts, oftentimes, for myself, at least, and I've seen memes about this too, but introverts are introverted and they're very protective and everything that we've just talked about, but at the same time, they're very extroverted when they get around the right people, which is why I think sometimes it's hard for some people like yourself maybe, or people that get this side of me, if you will, to realize that I'm actually extremely, I say it a lot, that my introvert is introverted. I'm that introverted. But when I do get around the right people, then I'm extremely extroverted. And it has to do with what you were just saying, the right energy. You know what I mean? When the energy is a good match, then, man, just like you and I, we can talk for hours, obviously, about all kinds of things, right? But then there are some times where literally Kat has my tongue. There's nothing, I don't even have a thought of what to even talk about with some people. You know what I mean? Like I literally am like, I don't even know what to say. And sometimes it might be overwhelmed by one thing or another. But then sometimes it's like I just literally don't know how to, and you try that awkward, okay, so how's the weather? And I mean, you're trying so hard to connect with somebody and you're just like, oh, all right, well, or you can just feel when someone's off. You can feel when people want to talk like the vibe is some new age something another that is so like esoteric and oh my god, don't talk about that because you're a devil worshiper. You must be possessed by a demon if you're talking about this kind of stuff. Well, I'm sorry, but call it, label it however you want. Spidey sense, my Spidey sense, right? Like there are just times where things feel a certain way and when they don't. And
anyway.
I don't know, like your vibe attracts your tribe. I mean, all of these things are kind of cliche when it comes down to it. But also, when it really comes down to it, a lot of those cliche things that we call cliche there's a lot of truth that comes from them. You know what I mean? And it's actually, if we would bring it back to and simplify it to
I think
that.
Your vibe is your intuition.
Absolutely.
It's just your ability to recognize similar energy.
Exactly.
sounds all hippie and all this stuff, but I mean, ultimately, you can call it attention, you can call it interest instead of energy, you can call it mindset, you could call it, any number of things when you really get down to it, but ultimately it just comes back to energy, because attention is energy, your focus is energy, ultimately you have energy
grows.
in your body to observe, whether visually, audio or concentration. And so when it comes down to it, that's what vibe is you're just picking up on a form of energy that another person is emitting when you're in contact with them,
right,
in one way or another, close contact or whatever, and so you can just pick it up. And that's why some of the conversations, they just seem to flow and just seem to be almost scripted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The way they flow together so
And-
effortlessly, and yeah.
And it's just really,
like ours.
it's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's just a neat feeling to have. And so whenever you start to experience those things in life, as
It's
you
almost
grow
like
older and
you become addicted to that feeling.
become more aware of those interactions, you just
Hang on, I just blew my mind, dude.
you head towards them, and you just
Literally,
skip away
hang
from the
on.
others.
I'm
Okay.
blowing my mind right now.
Yeah.
All of these that choose drugs, alcohol, whatever, to abuse them, those addictions,
Mhm.
they withdraw
From reality.
they seclude themselves, isolate themselves. When the ultimate drug is this vibe, this level, this frequency, these kinds of conversations, which is the complete opposite of what they are running from and replacing with harmful toxins, whether it be food, whether it be cigarettes,
Substances.
alcohol, whatever substance it is, right? Porn, whatever it is, whatever the addiction is, it doesn't matter the product, right?
Right, yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah. It is the
When
truth.
literally, we've had this conversation before, goosebumps everywhere. It really just comes down to connection and being able to connect with people on a deeper level, and how life-giving that is.
Yeah. And you can you also have to be open to have conversations with people that might not be on the same wavelength, you know,
Right.
because I think that's important for growth
Absolutely.
and for both individuals.
Absolutely.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
this brings me back to our conversation on Sunday, where I would like for us to have that conversation at some point on a podcast. But that type of thing, like, I think it's so important for us to have conversations where we don't exactly see eye to eye for exactly the same reason you just said, for the growth. I mean, we need to gain perspectives and look at all the things that we didn't even know that we would even have a conversation about last Sunday, that we ended up having conversation about, that I think was a good, productive conversation. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I think we have that one. I don't know that I'm in on it today, but
no. But anyway, so vibe. We're going back to that and to frequency, because we were just a little bit ago before we started recording talking about, I came across this meme or video short about 144,000. And I think there's
Hertz.
like well, hang on. You gave the whole thing away. I'm
Sorry.
gonna delete that and edit it out.
frequency.
Anyways, talking about 144,000, and there's a show about 144,000, right? And there's some kind of like a series on Netflix or something maybe that's 144,000. So there's a conversation about it out there, but it's all a very elusive conversation from what I have come across so far until this particular video, which I've been on this track. I've been talking, having conversations and writing and different things about frequency for years. And again, people call me a witch because of it. And I'm like, this is so simple. It's literally what Jesus was teaching, but we bastardized it like we do everything else. And I don't know if that was intentionally, like society somehow, some way or another, somebody figured out that if you do that, if you spin things around, it confuses everybody and keeps them all confused and basically in a consumption lack mentality, and that's how you make money. Sorry, that's a very simplified way to put it, but that's kind of how I filter everything, if you will.
Distracted and subdued.
Yeah. So, anyways, 144,000. This short, the whole point of it was saying that they thought that they had figured out the secret, that it literally isn't about 144,000 people, although it is, because it's anyone that is vibing at that level is collectively could be that 144,000 group, right? But the whole point, like you just brought up a while ago, is it's the frequency. And this particular guy was talking about fasting and how at day 5, like it walked you through the frequencies that you would vibrate at the amount of time that you had been fasting. So for like 24 hours, it was X frequency, and 3 days it was X. And by the 5th day, he said that that's when you reach, just from eliminating all of these things, the whole process of what fasting does for you. By the 5th day, you reach the frequency of 144,000, and how significant that is. Goosebumps everywhere.
So it'd be interesting to see if it progresses past that frequency.
Right?
After that, and what those frequencies are.
Yeah, I saved it.
I'm going to do some looking up. I'm going to do some reading about it. Is there a show to have to do with 144,000?
I think it was on Instagram.
Closest match is 4,400, a science fiction series where 4,400 people who vanish over decades reappear with mysterious powers.
Oh, okay.
While the number 4,400 is not 144,000, the show's premise of select groups of special abilities could loosen parallel interpretations of 144,000 as a chosen group. The series explores themes of reintegration, government oversight, and supernatural abilities, but it does not explicitly connect to 144,000. It's a Netflix series, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. You were doing.
I think that there's something to fasting. I have read about fasting a lot, and
related
not necessarily
to health.
Not related to
physical
health, but spiritual health. I mean, it makes sense too. There's a lot of places in the Bible that talks about fasting, and it's just something that I want to get more frequent into doing.
Same.
I'd like to do a 24-hour every week, and then a 3-day every month, and then about every quarter I'd like to do a 5 to 7.
Yeah,
and
same. That was the schedule I was on back before I stopped.
Yeah.
I did that really good for about 8 months.
And
6 months.
I've done 3 multiple times, and
yeah.
I know that I feel better.
I've never done a 5-day. 3 is the most that I've done, and I've done that several. Well, I've done 6, 7, probably 7 or 8 of those.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely beneficial. I want to back up real quick, and we can come back to the whole frequency thing. But you had mentioned earlier, or I guess I did too, but about how it's important to have conversations with people, even if you're not vibing with them, to help with growth in both directions. The life that I live, I don't necessarily interact with too many people in person every day, but I am able to talk online, and I actually was trying to have these conversations with people
Right,
before the rest
channel.
of the world was ready.
Yeah.
But not just even whenever I was doing my channel, even before that, I was trying to have these conversations on social media.
Well, same, and that's what I was doing at the coffee shop. That's why I was having those conversations.
Yeah, and then I just got banned, blocked, and deleted off of everything. back in like 2017 time frame, but I was already being chastised for having these types of conversations on social media even before then, and it just culminated in me eventually getting banned, blocked, and deleted.
Yeah.
Same, multiple times over multiple platforms. But that's, there's so many people that say that we can't have these conversations online, and because these conversations are too difficult for people to understand, or that's not long format enough, or
that you shouldn't even have them in person because it's very personal.
That's right, but that's the venue, right? So that's why I've always been trying to share these different types of things on social media, not trying to tell people how to live, but have conversations that at least
just bring perspective.
Bring perspective and ignite the fire of
taking your power back and thinking
I mean?
for yourself, and
being inquisitive about our world and about making progress on spirituality and mental toughness and how to deal with the world and so on, and so it's been a struggle though. It is, but at the same time, you just have a lot of people out there that don't want to have those difficult conversations in person or online or anywhere, and so they see these types of conversations or calling out hypocrisy or calling out ridiculousness as, confrontational on social media. And it definitely can be confrontational whenever you take it and you're cussing at people or commenting about their looks, or when it comes down to just physical features, not necessarily being overweight or out of shape or whatever your hang up is, when it comes down to, the way that we're supposed to be living as far as health-wise goes and stuff like that. But, so it can be divisive, but the problem is there need to be good people out there that are doing it to outweigh the divisive conversations and actually steer it in a direction to where it's more beneficial to everyone rather than being perceived as divisive.
Well, like providing an actual example of how you can have a healthy debate, a healthy conversation with opposing views. Like this is something that we have gotten so far away from in today's society, that everything is confrontational. If you don't agree with exactly everything that I say, then we are definitely having a confrontational conversation, and I am not here for that. but a lot of people...
You'll get more skillful too as you do it, even in person, and having conversations with people that are trying to escalate it to a different level than what it needs to be at as far as aggressiveness. You can just steer the conversation in a different way without feeding that fire of aggression.
So this is very interesting, the direction all of this is going. First of all, caveat real quick, we didn't have an agenda today. We kind of explored a couple of different things that we might talk about a little bit earlier, but we knew we wanted to come together for another conversation, but that was about it. So what's interesting is somewhere that I am very, very passionate about in conversation about, but don't have it with anyone. Like, this is the ultimate. It is. I'm telling you, this is the ultimate right now, and I don't have this conversation with anyone.
I'm talking about alchemy.
Yes, I'm talking about Doctor Strange, how that is my absolute favorite movie, and nobody gets it because it literally is true, and that is literally what the Healing Center is about. About teaching that.
My favorite Marvel movie is Doctor Strange.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
And that is why it's my favorite, Jake.
Cool.
Immediately, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is it. This is it." And I'm sorry,
it's magic.
It is magic, but it is our power, our own God-given power within that Jesus was trying to teach us about. But we literally want to talk about it being witchcraft. Mm-hmm. And we don't look at it whatsoever. And I don't know if it's maybe, I'm getting really passionate right now. I told you I'm very passionate about this. But I don't know if it's maybe because if you give your power away, you don't have to take responsibility for your health or your choices or changing or any of those kinds of things. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why we want to label it all these different things that are evil, so that we don't actually take responsibility and take the steps of what we need to do to change our life, to create the life that we want. And so that right there is the catalyst for my whole reason for starting this podcast.
You know that saying that I say all the time?
Be the change.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
That's ultimately what it stems from.
Exactly.
Is because it doesn't matter your struggle in life. It doesn't matter what is making you upset. It doesn't matter the problem you're dealing with. It doesn't matter your health issues. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's changing your perspective to understand what is beneficial to you and what isn't.
100.
And to be more spiritually enlightened, to be more in tune with your body, to be better with relationships, to be better with money, to be better. It's all about where you put your energy.
Exactly.
And personally making the change that you need to make. And it's not all the same for everybody, because everybody has to do it in different ways and different times. It takes longer for some than others in this area rather than that area.
Talked about that last time too, though. Yes and no, because sometimes we use that as an excuse to stay put also.
All I'm saying is that people are going to progress differently.
Yes, absolutely agree. But I'm the devil's advocate here. I think that that's actually a self-sabotage type choice type thing. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes we use that, oh, it's not right for everyone, as an excuse to stay where we are rather than progressing.
No excuse. All I'm saying is that, you know, you lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you know, there's things in my life that I've done specifically to help wake people up to the reality that they live in a different way than verbally.
Right.
And specifically with my wife.
Right.
Kayla is fantastic. She is a better person than I am in so many different ways. However, with the reality that we lived in, I had just witnessed it before she had, or put the pieces together than before she has, and she has admitted this. And so instead of verbally,
and you've done the research,
right,
and put the plan together, come up with the strategy, and put it
right
to practice.
So
and
arguably we're the same age, but I just discovered things because of my experiences in life that had pushed me in this direction to see through the fog.
Right.
And so that's all I'm saying.
What do you think? Could you top 3 pinpoint those experiences that led you down this road? I know I could, but I've had, most of mine has been medically related. Is there anything specifically that you could pinpoint that led you, that were the catalysts to those things? Being alone
is probably number 1.
Do you think that's because you chose to use the time to research?
You know, I had more time to spend on reading and research at a younger age than I think a lot of people have.
Right.
So I think that is a contributing factor, but it's not necessarily the reason. I say it's more so by having the time to become mindful of my reality based upon my own thoughts.
Yeah.
And how much that affects every aspect of life.
Yeah.
And then not being constantly bombarded by propaganda, to where I was able to develop my own thoughts and really think things through without any interruptions or distractions.
Are you talking kind of like during your early military career? Is that mostly?
Well, I mean,
as far as time frame goes?
Not just then, but even before, like whenever I was a kid and just
right.
alone a lot.
Right.
I didn't have access to radio. I didn't have access to TV, really.
Right. We didn't grow. It's so weird. People think I'm crazy when I say that. Like, first of all, I claim, do not ever add me. Don't ever ask me to be on your team. You don't want me on your team during like a pop culture type trivia type thing, because I know nothing. I did not grow up with MTV. We lived in, so I started working basically full time when I was 12. If I wasn't taking care of you guys, I was taking care of other kids, babysitting. About that time, you guys were getting a little older to take care of yourselves. But then I, at 16, went to work full time. If I wasn't playing ball, I was working at either closing the daycare or closing Mazio's every night. You know what I mean? So I worked. Then I got married. I worked. I've worked 2 jobs, multiple jobs my whole entire life. The first time I didn't work 80 to 90 hours a week was when we moved to Texas. And that was in 2007. And we were there a year before we moved to Germany. And at that point, I started my own business working, as a photographer. I was finishing up the weddings that I was flying back for in DC that I had already committed to before we moved. And then I chose to open my own photography business at that point. So I was busy doing that. But for the first time in my life, that was a lot of my health issues started then and getting figured out and stuff then too. So, well, at least trying to investigate and try to figure out. But anyways, I guess my whole point is that was the first time that I really had a whole lot of time on my hands ever in my life. Because before that, it was nothing but distraction constantly. You know what I mean? And not just mental distraction, but also physical neglect and so many things. So anyways, big off in a different direction, but the whole point is the time that you had on your hand and how that really influenced or sparked or whatever the ability to think for yourself. We could put it that simply.
Yeah, to think for yourself. And it's important to have that time, I think. And, it's one of the reasons we restrict media access for our children. I don't want them to be constantly in front of a TV screen because I want them to come up with their own thoughts based upon their own environment without any type of information. Silence is good. Yeah. Silence is good. It allows you to really be aware of yourself, be aware of your thoughts, what you're thinking of, concentrate on whatever it is that you're doing, concentrate on yourself, concentrate on being content with where you are, what you're doing. And I think that's incredibly valuable for human beings. And not enough human beings get to experience that at a young age, nor as an adult.
Right.
And so they're constantly feeding themselves music or today podcasts or, Netflix and chill, binge watching TV shows.
Something to fill the silence.
And so even when they're at work, so many people are so focused on whatever that task is, they don't have the opportunity to really think about things, about their self and why they believe this or believe that or what their actions are, what they want to focus on to change about themselves.
And let me just say, from literally personal experience and even recent, okay, that is not only that is a requirement for me. I feel like that's what I was lacking to be successful in the corporate world. Does that make sense? I feel like whatever spell that is, because I believe it's a spell. Sorry, but it is. We're going to get really out there. This podcast is really off the chain today, you guys. We are getting deep into who the fuck Jen is and what she thinks, but sorry, might as well rip the Band-Aid off eventually, because I really, for me at least personally, it was so hard for me to conform to corporate and just the ways of corporate from my experience anyway. I mean, there have been a couple of different times for a second though that I've been in a corporate type atmosphere. Let's see, from 2001 to 2005, again in 2011 to 2015, and then not again until 2021 to 2024. So recently, as of a year and a half ago, I was in corporate for 3 years. And my personal experience is exactly that. Whatever that is, you have to possess the ability to at least compartmentalize and this is going to sound so tacky and so terrible, but you kind of have to put thinking for yourself on the back burner and just quiet that. You suppress that shit. And maybe that's why they're feeding everybody antidepressants and anti-anxiety and all the things and all the other things and like we were just talking about, all the endocrine disruptors. Actually, Kayla and I were just talking about your wife. I've said before that we need to get her on the podcast because she's a wealth of information as well. She was literally just talking about how birth control suppresses not just your hormones and ability to reproduce, it literally disrupts your ability, your intuition, your ability to discern whether or not somebody is good for you as far as energetically. Like, you can get into abusive relationships this way, and that literally is almost like it's all by design. That, everybody talks about how African American families are the downfall of society because they have so many different baby daddies and all the different things, right? Well, what if part of it, the whole design, right? We talked about this last Sunday. The whole purpose is to reproduce. So if we are I'll speak for myself, coming from our Caucasian influence, if you will, and our very high moral and high character background, right? That you don't shame the family and all these kinds of things. Well, one of the first things that happened was went on birth control so that we don't shame the family, because at one point I had a friend that ended up getting pregnant in high school, and oh my God, you would have thought that was the absolute worst thing that anyone could ever do in their whole entire life. Like, I was even forbade to go to the hospital to see my friend and welcome the baby because it was a child born out of wedlock. So you're telling me I have to shame a child, an infant, an innocent infant, because of a decision that two adult humans made? Quote unquote adults? Like, you know what I mean? Come on. Anyways, got off on a tangent, but my whole, point to start out with was how birth control alone suppresses your ability to,
feeds back into the health and nutritional aspect of life that has been so much affected by our world and our environment as a means of control.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
Exactly. And it bleeds
now,
into every
whether or not
aspect.
it started as a means of control or whether it was discovered along the way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Example, statin drugs. Okay? Statin drugs didn't come out until the 80s. Okay? Why did they come out? Well, they were trying to produce another blood pressure medication. And whatever concoction they come up with, they figured out that it lowered cholesterol. So they marketed it as the cholesterol lowering medication, and that you shouldn't have cholesterol, and the eggs are bad, and blah, 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 blah. Does everyone understand that cholesterol is 100% responsible for producing all, not one, every single one of your hormones?
Yeah.
Particularly your brain and your sex hormones.
Yeah.
Therefore, the rise in what? Dementia and low T.
Yeah, low testosterone. Cholesterol. That's why it's important to eat meat.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
I think now is a good time to also bring up Mamaw, okay? When I was going through massage school, we had a conversation about health. Her and I and Uncle John used to come together like this and have really in-depth medical conversations, okay? And not just medical, but also theological, just conversations like this. Is really interesting. Now I'm just now realizing this. Miss that woman. The one that we grew up with, you know what I mean? The one that...
Yeah.
Anyway, so, why did I say to bring all that up?
Cholesterol.
Oh,
in-depth
5 by
medical
50.
Conversations.
5 by 50 is what she would tell me. When she was in LPN school, which she didn't become an LPN until she was like 50, something like that. But anyways, she was in LPN school, and the doctors, her professors, whatever, the acronym or whatever that's called, that they told them was 5 by 50. And that meant every single patient that you see should be on 5 medications by the time they're 50 years old. Can you guess which medications those are? Pause. I'll let you guys think about it. Rhetorical question for you, Jake. Here's pause and think about it, you guys. And comment below. Let us know what you think they are. Here they are. Antidepressant, anti-anxiety, sleep, high blood pressure, cholesterol. Those are the 5 medications that every doctor in the, let's see, this was, Mama was going
1990s.
to LPN school in the 90s. So all of the doctors in
80s.
the 90s, no, it was the 90s.
Early 90s.
It was, it was early 90s because, well, it was late 80s probably because
It was late 80s. Early
Mom
90s.
was early 90s when
Yeah.
she ended up going to medical assistant school.
His mom was a florist at the time.
Yes, exactly. And
she
continued.
she was working as a florist and stuff like that.
And going to medical assistant school.
Yeah, because with us kids,
Yes.
she was be more available
Yes.
to help with our kids. The kids. I mean,
Yes.
she was doing the floral thing. But then there was somewhere, we were relatively young still, though. I want to say I was probably 5 where she became a nurse. And when I was 5, it would have been 1993, somewhere around there. And so that's when I remember that a lot of things changed.
Yeah.
In our
and
life.
during that time is when we lived with Mama. And so this is a little bit of airing our dirty laundry, but no, it's significant. My dad and I we fought a lot because I wanted to date and I was 15 and we fought also because I didn't want to play basketball anymore. I wanted to just focus on softball. And so there was a lot of
animosity.
Well, just turmoil between him and I. We just butted heads a lot, and
ultimately Mom too.
Well, yeah, obviously, and then I ended up moving out and moved in with Mama, and then a couple weeks later, it seemed like Mom and you guys came too, and we were there during the whole time that she was going to medical assistant school, and so she continued to be a florist all the way through. Whenever I got married, my first marriage, hate to say it that way, I never got married wanting to be divorced, but here I am 2 divorces later. She was working as a florist, and my first wedding was just absolutely incredible with the flowers and stuff, and just really insane. It was awesome. So anyways, so she worked constantly, 2 jobs growing up, and Dad worked out of town, and here we are.
And worked a lot.
And even when he was home, he was always working out in the garage on different projects, trying to make extra money and stuff like that. So they were hard workers, very hard workers. But you know what? It was interesting. At some point in my adult life, I realized too, though, that their perspective of having multiple jobs, instead of it being multiple streams of income and that being a positive, it was a grow up and get your education so you don't have to work multiple jobs like I do. Perspective, which is a complete shift energetically.
Could have been a better view.
Yeah, you see what I mean? When it comes to like,
you could have used.
Oh my gosh, the law of attraction and manifesting anything. God forbid that we talk about anything like that. But I'm sorry
it's just lack of understanding. It's not their fault in the sense that they wanted it to be that way.
Exactly. They just wanted better for their kids.
Learned experience.
Yeah.
It's, there's kind of a law of progression in everything.
Right.
And that's ultimately where I am now with feeling that way or another about our upbringing or the environment that we were in, good, bad, the otherwise it did.
Everything we go through brings us to exactly who we are.
Yeah, and so for instance, that was Mom and Dad too. It was Mom and Dad too.
Exactly.
They did the best they could with what they had.
100%.
And that's what I'm not resentful as far as the way that we were raised.
No,
I'm not resentful.
no way.
I really am not.
It was very contrasting, but it was exactly what we needed, and it was great in a lot of ways.
What I struggle with now is the lack of interest in change, or the lack of patience and willingness to understand why changes need to be made. You know what I mean? And, obviously there is an average lifespan based upon whatever century you're in when it comes down to humanity. And, everyone associates illness with death. And so, for instance, they died. Well, how'd they die? Oh, they died from cancer, or they died from a heart attack, or they died from diabetes, or they died from this, or died from that, or what. That's, you know what I mean? There's always a reason as to why they died. And there's always a reason as to why you got there. And so, when it's my filament dryer. Oh, sorry. And you can change that. And so that's my frustration with the way that we grew up versus the way that I'm raising my family now, and ultimately leading our entire family. I really am leading our entire family.
Yeah, you are, absolutely.
And that's where I struggle, is that eventually I have to take over for our family when it comes down to the male aspect of the coin. And that's not just my family, my wife and my kids. I am that now. But I need to take it over for Kayla's mom and dad, and I need to take it over for our family as well, because there is no other male in our family at that level, and they're same with theirs. And that's a problem with our society as well. And then whenever you factor in all of the toxins in our food due to the lack of hormone production, the lack of nutrient level in our food due to the lack of nutrients in our food, you know what I mean? And the way that our body develops, what we think about, how conscious we are, how unconscious we are, how intentioned we are, and what we stand up for and what we call out as wrong or right, rather than just being subdued into a complicit, state. And so that's the problem. That's one of the major reasons we've ended up in the society that we've lived in, that we're living in, with so many problems, and people not being personally responsible for their own lives, whether it be through, emotional intelligence, or deciding to make a change that they need to make for themselves, and deciding to shift that energy from this place to that place. It's because so many people are so unable to do it because of all the toxins that we're subjected to and what we focus on.
They keep you in this
media
fog
is a toxin. Food, TV is a toxin. You know what I mean? It's it's a distraction.
Yes.
All of these distractions that exist in the world and around us, and electronically and in person, whether it be playing sports or whether it be doing this, that, and the other. You can add those things in, but if you're not aware of your own emotions, your own thoughts, your own intentions, then you're allowing those things to control you. And then you're worshiping idols, and you're ultimately guiding your life by that way in just this confused stupor, to where you can't actually make the decisions you want to make because you don't know how to, because you can't even recognize that they're there.
Exactly. And then if you didn't grow up with that example, then you're really fucked.
Yeah, and so
that's why we're doing this podcast.
It's all about breaking the cycle. It's all about breaking the cycle of life that those before us have experienced and not recognized the changes that need to be made. And it's not about calling mom and dad out on this, that, and the other that they're doing wrong. It's about helping guide them in a direction that's better than the one they have been heading, that unfortunately as parents you end up leading your children in. It doesn't mean that you're trying to lead them in the wrong way. You are doing the best that you can. Because it's not like our parents fed us, garbage all the time.
No,
we did have box hamburger helper, and we had this, that, and the other. But they were still trying to do what was right.
Yes.
And so that's what I want people to get over.
Exactly.
Is because even myself, me personally, in my life, I used to be that person in a lot of ways because of what I had learned.
Same.
And so
absolutely.
The changes that I'm making now are the changes knowing what I know, I can't continue to go down this path. It's like walking in a street in front of a car.
Exactly.
You can use any other analogy that's detrimental to your health. And so whenever it comes down to the way that I live, the decisions I make, the way I raise my children, what I do on a daily basis, who I interact with, who I don't interact with, it's 100% because I'm trying to do better than those before me.
Right.
And my sole purpose in life is to create better humans than myself.
Exactly.
Through my interactions,
Right.
but specifically through how I raise my children. And that's what people don't understand, is they see it as an attack on them because they're doing something wrong.
Right.
It's not about me calling out that you're doing something wrong. It's about me making you aware of it, because every other aspect of our society keeps you from understanding that what you're doing is wrong. And so that's why I'm so passionate about the way that I raise my children, who we talk with, where we go, what we do,
Exactly.
and what I post on social media, because
Yes.
I'm not trying to tell you what you're doing wrong. I'm trying to help you make a change that's better for your life and the rest of humanity.
Yes.
And it's not this altruistic, I'm better than anyone else, everyone else, or
No.
anything like that. It's the fact that while I'm on this earth for this short period of time that I am blessed to have the experiences that I have on a daily basis,
Yes.
I want to leave this world and leave a good, true, 100% loving, caring legacy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's what my children are to me. I never got to finish what my legacy is. The other day, like what I think of as legacy, what you leave behind in our last podcast, I can't, and it was about how you raise your kids. And that's what you just kind of knew that was my legacy that I'm trying to leave behind. But it's so much deeper, because how I leave my kids behind and what they learn and the experiences that they have, whether it's going to Disney World and the
and not getting
assumption
kidnapped
of
into the
success
tunnels.
based upon all these extravagant things. Assumption of success based upon all these extravagant things. You know, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it's like
And
keeping
so-
up with the Joneses.
Right.
It's like,
And so we might not always be doing something every weekend to where we're doing, oh, did you go to the Thunder game? Did you go to the OU game? Did you go to Disney World? Did you go to the lake? Did you go to the river? Did you go to this? Did you go to that? You know, I want to do those things, but I want to create an environment here at home
so you don't
that
let it
are
escape
all
from-
those things combined and better.
Yes.
And yeah, we can go do these things and experience this thing, and we go to the monster truck rally every year. You know what I mean? That's like the one thing that we do. I want my kids to know about working on vehicles, and that's a good way to spark interest in that. And so there's things in our life that I have decided to interact with strategically.
Yeah.
And so, going to church, being interested in physical fitness as far as being capable with your body. So I'm introducing them to things to where I'm curating what I introduce them to based upon what I think at this age they should be focusing on. And so martial arts, being capable with your body, and introducing them to things like that.
And sparking that
rather than
interest,
hey, let's go
yeah.
watch baseball all the time, or go watch
Yeah.
basketball all the time, or go, so
Being
we
active.
watch UFC, not because of the just brutality of it and trying to introduce them to something that's really aggressive at a young age, but I want them to be aware of their body and fighting and protecting yourself. And so those are the types of things that we
Right,
focus
giving
on.
them the perspective that you
And
can
so-
use your body in defense.
Yeah, and so that doesn't mean that you can't interact with the media that exists in the world based upon what I was saying is all these distractions. You can still utilize these tools that we have when it comes down to AI, when it comes down to when it comes down to social media, when it comes down to recreation or any other form of media, TV shows, movies, whatever, you know what I mean? And so the superhero thing to me is important. And so my kids watch superhero cartoons and stuff like that, and we try to make sure that it's not crazy, woke nonsense and all this stuff. And so we observe, and we're very aware of what they're watching when they are, because we only allow a limited amount of time, so we can sit there and watch it with them, you know what I mean? So rather than just it being something they do on their own as a babysitter, we can intentionally watch something that is
actually
leaving a good message. You know what I mean?
Like,
it doesn't necessarily have to be educational.
Left in them.
Yeah, there's
in them.
educational lessons in them, not necessarily the whole overarching experience. But so I'm not saying that we can't have, an access to the digital world that we live in, and that I want to become 100% Amish. But there's appeal to that too, you know what I mean? So, I think
yes, I'm right there
when I may have said this in the past, but humanity went in the wrong direction whenever we stopped having conversations around dinner tables and campfires.
Absolutely.
Dinner tables and campfires. And not just with your immediate family, but with friends and groups of people and stuff like that. Having conversations around a deck of cards or a board game. These types of things in our life are so important, and movies don't allow for that. There might be some good lessons in movies, but at the same time you need to still allow for those types of interactions. And so that's my legacy, is trying to create this environment at home to where people are happy, they know they're taken care of, there's a lot of time spent. There is maybe one less parent working than both. You know what I mean? So that
and that's what I was saying
earlier. Somebody in the
earlier.
home that is really concerned with their well-being and their happiness and their interests, and you know what I mean. It's not just
so real quick. I want
recreationally.
to circle back to what we were talking about earlier about how the hormone suppressants are suppressing our ability to discern, but it's also suppressing our frequency. And so I've said for a long time that, like, when I talk to people about relationships, when I talk to young people about choosing somebody to have a relationship with, it isn't just about physical attraction and that they give you butterflies and those kind of things, that you really need to be very conscientious of the type of quality of that person, the caliber of that person. What do they like? Do they really treat their body as a temple as far as everything that they put into it, not just what they eat? That's the things, like they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So it's those types of things, approaching your selection that way, right? So, which is something we could get a whole other tangent on, like you can't do that on online dating, right? That kind of stuff. But go ahead. Well, I just wanted to talk about the frequency and how if you are vibing at a certain frequency by doing all of these things that we're talking about, then your vibe attracts your tribe. You're attracting the caliber of person that you're looking for. Go ahead.
Hey, sorry, I needed to write a note.
Do it now.
Piece of paper. Age of learning. So, it really bothers me when parents, put limitations on their children based on age.
Amen.
Because
in general,
beings learn based on their environment, not based on age.
Right.
And so when you think about a young child and how fast they learn to speak, it's really a matter of 6 months, if that, from not speaking at all to actually speaking.
Right.
It's strictly through observation. And so
that's why sign language is so effective.
It's strictly through observation. And so everybody says that children learn so fast. It's because the plasticity of their brain, which is ultimately the ability for your brain to retain information, is ultimately what plasticity
so much
of the
better
brain is.
when you're younger.
The ability is your brain still like a sponge, or you know what I mean? Is it getting filled up or whatever, right? So, and I think there's arguments there to make about the ability to learn even when you're old, because you still need to continue to learn when you're old. When you stop learning, you're ultimately dying. I mean,
is it true if you don't use it, you lose it?
Golly. Did you seriously just ask me that question? Oh my God.
Sorry guys, that's just how my brain happens, and it works in movie quotes and song lyrics.
Ultimately your body is connected, right? Your body is connected. So if you're not using your whole body, then there's going to be parts of your body that don't want to continue to work. Exactly. And so I ultimately think that's probably that's something that's wrong with men in their older years.
Yeah.
And especially with the toxins in our food. And
let's get right down to speaking life. Right. It's as simple as that, okay? Yeah. And I'm sorry,
when you put limitations on yourself, those things matter.
There are people in our
Regardless of
lives
age.
that you ask them how they're doing and they say, oh, I'm doing great for a crippled old person. And you're like, well, you've been saying that for years. It's a shame that you're a crippled old person now.
You could just stop with, I'm doing pretty great.
I literally realized
Just stop
this
there.
years ago,
Just
and
stop.
I literally made the choice to start responding with, I'm doing fantastic, I'm doing great, life is great, whether it's bullshit or not. Sorry, imposter syndrome, fake it till you make it. It's literally, there's something to it. And also finding joy regardless, which is the title of one of my books that I'm working on. And it literally is all about, look, regardless, I'm stage 4 cancer, metastatic, you have 3 to 5 years to live. Okay, well, bullshit, I don't accept that prognosis, number one. And I'm going to prove to you that I'm going to be joyful regardless of what's going on in my life, that you can do that.
Yeah.
People can do that. You can literally focus on the right shit and figure out how to be joyful no matter what is going on in your life.
Which comes back to emotional intelligence.
Yes.
It's all
Sorry to
connected.
take over, but
No,
this is a great one.
It's all about, and back to emotional intelligence, which we talked about last week.
Yeah.
I think it was last week.
Yeah.
Last Thursday,
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
We should just do it every Friday.
Let's do
Every
it. I
Friday
would
morning.
love to spend my every Friday this way. And when you move, we'll do it. Either I'll come there or we'll do it online.
So I am really mindful of my thoughts, and I try to be very intentional with what I do. But structure really matters for me. It really is important in my life to keep everything in order, have a schedule, have goals, because I hold myself accountable a lot better. But then these types of conversations hold me accountable too.
Right.
They really do.
Well,
I've got so
also-
many things pulling me in so many directions right now. It's hard for me to focus on what I need to, because it's just so many aspects of our life that are really happening all at once. More so than just every day go to work, come home, blah, stuff like that. And so
It's kind of good to have these brain dumps to get all of those
Yeah.
distracting things out so that you can focus on the priorities.
for sure.
That's how it works for me anyway. I've said it often, like, certain people in my life, their response to me doing a podcast is like, oh yeah, how much money you make off of that? Well, I don't make anything. And that's not why I do it. That's not why I've ever done anything in my life. Unfortunately, it shows. But it's all about just empowering other people. And more than anything, this is therapy for me. And more than that, this is me connecting with my younger brother. And we just happen to record it. So, you know what I mean? We're just blessed to get to spend this type of time together. And it means something to me big time. It helps me tremendously. And I feel like it helps me so profoundly that it has to help other people. So that's why we decided to record it and publish it. I mean, it's too valuable to me to not do that. I feel like that's what we're for, right?
Yeah.
I think that's part of our
Which is
purpose on this planet. That's why we've been doing
share on
it.
social media. You know what I mean? And so, since that's being blocked, the only other option of getting it out is on this format.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
And also, it's so, having something recorded, a discussion recorded rather than live, is also good just based upon accessibility and context.
yeah.
Because you come in and get part of a discussion and then you have no idea what's going on, and let's just say a space on X or something like that, and hop in a couple of them and you're like, what are these people talking about? And it's sometimes you're like, what in the world? And they're just people having fun, right, in casual conversation. And so sometimes you get off topic and you can't quite keep track or whatever. But I've had my own podcast, my own daily live stream and stuff like that in the past, and I want to keep doing that. However, it's just live is difficult because it can't always be live. The schedule is what messes with me. I've got too many irons in the fire to often just commit to exactly the same time all the time every day for years on end, because life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And so
No, I totally agree. I mean, that's why this has kind of been inconsistent if you want to view it that way. Although I listened to a short of somebody that I know that started a podcast that they've been a social media personality for years, and I met them back at the coffee shop. Actually, let me talk about this for a second because this person is very intriguing. She has lived all over the world now. She's from like Wichita Falls, Texas, and she came into the coffee shop one day, and I just happened to be there by myself, and she came in with her camera, and she found me through our supplier, our roaster. And it was like, I guess maybe his niece or something like that. And she was starting out on social media, and she was coming up with her own brand of coffee and stuff like that. But it was all about having conversation and, this kind of stuff. And she was just, gosh, it was such a blessing to have a conversation with this human. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then she blew up into this sensation. I mean, absolute sensation. She's lived all over the world, and she is very transparent about her journey and how she started in the sex industry. And I'm not exactly sure of I don't think she was a prostitute or I think she was maybe like a cocktail waitress, something like that, or maybe like a Hooters waitress or something like that. I'm not sure. Irrelevant. You're still treated the same way no matter what, whether you have your clothes on or not. You know what I mean? I feel like in some environments, you know what I mean? So anyways, long story short, lots of different things, abusive relationships, but she decided to take it all on the road, and she has done retreats all over the world. She has lived in India and Bali and China, and I think I'm really butchering her story here, so you need to go find her. Aubrey's is her name. I'll link her down below the episode, but she's just really fun to kind of follow her journey kind of type thing. And
you had a conversation with her again recently?
No, I listened to her on a podcast talking about her starting her own podcast, and she was talking about how she had multiple, I think like double digits, like 20 plus episodes that she has been recording, but she has not released any of them yet. She wanted to
have a catalog,
something. I'm not sure exactly the whole method to the madness there, but it just gave me a little bit of like helped me relax a little bit about not being so consistent about when and how often, and all the kind of stuff that we record.
Do you have more recordings that you haven't uploaded?
No, we're actually caught up to in real life IRL right now. This is we're actually recording episode number 17 at this moment.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I had no idea that we had done that. Well, I know you've done.
Well, right. I'm not sure exactly how many this is of the bro sessions. It's probably maybe around 7, something like that. But I today could, I don't know what your timing is like, but today could end up being 17 and 18. I really would like us to get deeper into specific type things that we had talked about when it comes to health. I mean, we pretty much did a quantum leap right into the most efficient way to get everything done is just with your mind. But along the way, some supplements and things that you can add to your journey that would really benefit you are things like salt. And what brought up that conversation was, here, let me pause for a second. Do you have time to have a little bit of, okay. Yeah. I just kept talking, run on sentences.
Kids aren't getting too wild up there. Kayla doesn't need help. I'm good.
Okay. So we talked about how the different things that are mentioned in the Bible, as far as the different products, substances, whatever, that we should be consuming. And it talked a lot about like it said, like salt was mentioned like 360 times in the Bible. And let me see if I can find some things like that real quick. Like sourdough bread is mentioned like 300 plus times, and honey and olive oil and things like butter and cheese and milk, raw milk, eggs.
Whole Foods.
Yeah, whole foods for sure. Fish for sure. Different fowl, different meats like cow, goat, lamb, oxen, sheep, venison, which, by the way, I'm not sure that I've talked about this on social or anywhere yet really, but I've been taking a organ meat supplement. So in previous episodes, I think we've talked about I get all of my meat from my brother. He's amazing. He supplies me with raw milk, with all of my water that's super filtered and well water, and then we can get into that also. But then also his meat. He raises all of our beef and chicken, and in his beef, he incorporates all of the organ meat into his ground beef. And so I'm a taco fiend, and that is what I end up eating more than anything. But I just wanted to mention that like I said, I'd been taking an organ supplement, and I reached out to this she's a nurse practitioner and a nutritionist that I've went to throughout this cancer journey, and I came across something this was before it got really popular on social media. Right now there's a product that is it's like a beef liver is what they're promoting, and I asked her if she thought that could have anything to do with, they were claiming that it would be really, that it's the promotion, the marketing for this particular product, the one that I'm referencing at the time, was that it can help regulate hormones, for hormone regulation. And so I reached out to her asking her if she thought, validity, blah, 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 blah. She said that could definitely be possible, but however, I would recommend a sheep liver product over beef because of all the reasons why you grow and raise your own everything. So, long story short, I have been through half a bottle of that, and my recent blood work came back literally, and that's the only thing that I have focused on for the last 2 months, and inconsistently. Okay? Talking maybe 3 times a week. Probably it is averaged out to taking the supplement 3 times a week.
How many capsules?
2 at a time, and sometimes maybe 2 of those 3 days I'll take it twice a day. So maybe 6 doses.
Okay.
Consistently.
What?
Where you're supposed to take 2 in the morning, 2 in the day, and 2 in the morning and 2 in the night.
I get it.
Anyways, I'm just saying I haven't taken even a third of what's recommended. Okay. Now, I don't know that I contribute everything to this.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
I don't know that I contribute everything to this because I do so much other work when it comes to energy, grounding. Yeah. That's probably one of the biggest parts.
I feel like the movie's about to end, and I'm gonna have to wait 2 years for the next freaking
drum roll, please. Drum roll. Okay. Perfect.
You've been on your game.
Absolute perfect blood work.
As far as something you put in your body other than mental capability, your blood work is perfect. And it wasn't before?
It's never been perfect. This whole time, it has never been absolutely perfect.
That's great.
Literally is 100% in the green, every single thing that she
Thank you
tested.
for telling me. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so super cool.
Isn't that cool?
I'm proud of you.
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
I knew
thank
you could do it.
Yeah. So, thank you.
That's
Anyways.
why whenever you told me, I was like, okay. I don't know if you got that vibe from me.
When I told you what?
That you had cancer.
Oh, right.
I don't know if my response whenever you said that was like the initial response. Like the first time we had the conversation, I think we were standing out in mom and dad's backyard, and I had heard from obviously mom and dad or whoever.
Oh, you had.
But you and
tell
I
me the
hadn't-
story because I don't know.
You and I hadn't really. You hadn't came to me and said, "Hey, Jake, I've got cancer." Like through the grapevine is how I heard. And so whenever you and I had the first actual conversation together about it, I don't know if you remember me saying that, but I was like, dude, so what? you got cancer. What do you fucking do? Like, beat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry for my language.
Well, no, that's exactly what we did. We went straight into just doing everything we could holistically to beat it.
To beat it.
Yeah.
And
I did for a long time. I got really, really good.
Yeah.
And
well, what I'm saying is that even though you had to do some chemotherapy, whatever,
to help,
right?
Whatever.
It's kind of like this. You don't.
It's like taking an antibiotic when you have something really, really bad.
That's the way ultimately I viewed you doing chemo. I know your intention was to completely do it without it, but sometimes you got to use a fire extinguisher, you know?
Right,
sometimes
and you build back.
And, you know, our bodies heal. Our bodies have the capability of healing.
That is the biggest thing.
And so, regardless of the environment that we're in, the toxins we come in contact with, you have a way of healing. And that's what I was getting to with, like, age and hormones when you're older and the lack thereof and lack of interest in doing anything physical, and you can make a change. And just like I want to be the change that I want to see in the world, it has to do with sorry if you heard something clicking in the background. It's me fiddling with a pencil on my desk.
And if you heard the sudden stop, it was me telling him to stop with motions.
I fiddle with things constantly, and so in here I've got to be still as a mummy. But anyway, anyway, I was tapping a pencil on the desk, and it's the second or third time I've been gotten onto, so I apologize for the tapping. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that we have control, and we can regain that control over our lives, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, and
but it's hard to
crazy
realize
that we didn't have anything to talk. Like, we had no idea what we were going to talk about today.
Yeah, but we don't, and it's hard to realize that you have that choice to gain back control. You can take your power back. That's my biggest message, and this message about health is probably the biggest message overall. So this is amazing today, but that's the thing. Is like you can make the choice, and we have been on this journey of what exactly we're talking about. We're big on leadership, and we lead by example, you guys, as much as possible. We don't just pull things out of our ass. We really try to talk from a place, like, I'll literally tell you, if I don't know what I'm talking about, I'll tell you. Like, I don't know about that. I'll have to look it up. I'll have to see.
I've been a leader my whole life.
If I talk about it, I know about it.
Yeah.
If I'm saying something about it, it's because I have either lived it mostly, or I have done a significant amount of research about it, and not just looked it up on Grok real quick. Like, I've literally for years my library is huge, tons and tons and tons of books on how to be healthy, how to overcome health issues, and I have in so many different ways. I mean, you can look back at my story. I'm not going to talk about it now, but for years, it's been a health journey, and I've gotten that's what was so weird about this cancer diagnosis, is because they all kept telling me, well, as healthy as you are, as healthy as you are, as healthy as you are. And I'm like, how does a person have this diagnosis and still be extremely healthy?
HPV vaccine.
No, I did not have the HPV.
You didn't?
No. Absolutely not. But that's a whole...
birth control. Do we want to keep going down?
Right there. Right there. I started on birth control at 12 years old.
You talked about water.
As soon as I started my cycles, they were irregular, and they put me on birth control to regulate my cycles.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah. Earlier, you went down the path of different things, and you said, oh, that's something else we can talk about is water. You mentioned water, filtration.
Yeah, water,
and
please,
getting back to that is, what is the only substance what types of filters do you think are in all water filters? What do they filter out?
Don't have a clue.
Okay. Sediment, so like sand.
Okay.
Chemicals.
Okay.
What would the next one be?
Bacteria.
Metals.
So
water is not filtered regularly for bacteria. Water is not filtered regularly for hormones. There are tremendous amounts of hormone chemicals that are in our water supply. Not just in municipal water, but in groundwater. there are tremendous amounts of chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, heavy metals, petroleums, groundwater, and municipal water that's been treated. But there are no filters on the majority of water filters that filter out bacteria and filter out hormones. It's treated for all kinds of things, but not bacteria and not hormones. And so birth control is ending up in our water supply, and men and women are not only becoming sterilized by our water supply and other toxins in our environment, but also it's jacking up all your hormones. I'm feeling my stuff again. I think that's got in trouble 5. That's my 5th. We need to have a counter somewhere. All right, ding. Number 5. Jake got in trouble.
Instead of the swear jar, it's going to be the fiddle jar.
Yeah, you cuss more than I do. I was in the military.
I do cuss like a sailor. It's terrible. It's just so expressive.
Yeah, I know.
It's just,
Yeah.
and
it just hits the mark.
And I'm in my just all natural era of.
Yeah, you should smell her. Don't get too close.
Shut up.
We're sitting like
You're
5
really
feet.
asking for
We're
it.
5 feet away from each other.
Whatever. I
Right
showered.
Organ meat.
Yes. Well, we were talking about water first. Here.
I thought we were done with water.
Well, no, because we didn't talk about how you filter it and why you water it. Why do I take the time to come over here to bottle water every week?
Well, I don't have a hormone filter in it, but I'm hoping that other things we do in our daily regiment combat the hormone disruption that comes from the potential of it in our water. Do you need help with something?
No.
Okay.
With life, yes.
So
here, for 1 second.
What part of water do you want to talk about?
Well, this is it. So while you were talking about it, I asked ChatGPT.
Oh, gosh. Don't use that one.
Well, whatever. He's the most available at the moment. Looking for Mr. Right now, not Mr. Right. Okay?
I got you.
Anyways, oh gosh, I just did a TikTok the other day about him because I argue with him all the time and how we just recently came to new set of agreements, terms and conditions, whatever, a new agreement. Anyways, long story short, he just said, I asked him, what chemicals are in hormone suppressants and are they also found in our water supply? And he says, hormone suppressants used in treatments like cancer therapy, especially breast and prostate cancers, gender-affirming care, and sometimes for endometriosis, work by interfering with the body's natural hormone production or hormone receptor pathways. Here's a breakdown of the main types of hormone suppressants, their common chemicals, and whether those chemicals or similar compounds are found in the water supply. Meaning the short answer, yes. And here's the breakdown. Not going to read all of it, but just real quick. Aromatase inhibitors, estrogen receptor modulators, SERMs, GnRHs, I don't even know, gonadotropin releasing hormone antagonists. Holy cow. Androgen deprivation therapies. These are all found in the water supply, you guys.
Yeah, regularly.
Regularly.
This isn't just like small amounts nor confined areas.
Detected substances include synthetic estrogen from birth control, natural estrogens from human urine like testosterone, or androgens like testosterone metabolites, and pharmaceuticals like tamoxifen and aromatase inhibitors have been detected in wastewater, though typically at very low levels. Those two. Well, that's good to know. This happens from excretion, flushing medications, runoff from livestock. That's something that people don't realize. Again, another motivation for you raising your own meat. They don't realize the toxins. It's not just antibiotics. Mm-hmm. It's not just what is it? What else they put in meat that we're avoiding? It's been so long since I've even thought about it now.
RBST.
The vaccines.
Yeah, I mean,
Any
mRNA
of the,
vaccines. It could
any
be
of that,
vaccine.
any
They're
of that
vaccinated
stuff.
from everything you can think of.
All kinds of.
Every single
things.
time I talk to any other farmer, did you get them vaccinated? Hey, I had a new calf. Did you get them vaccinated yet? No. Oh man, you better go do that. You better go get them vaccinated, dude. Whatever.
Well, the cost of losing one to not vaccinating it, if it were to catch something that everybody thinks is a real thing that isn't, is worth it to avoid feeding the whole herd and family all of those toxins. That was a really long way weird. Hopefully you caught that or stayed up with that. That was a weird way to say that,
Pros and cons list.
So how to protect yourself. Water filters, don't flush meds, stay informed. So here, short reason, that all of that to say, this is why I come bottle water from my brother weekly so that we can have wonderful conversations, but also so that he ensures that I get the same nutrients that his wonderful family does. And so what specifically do you do besides not use any pesticides and bullshit all over your land?
Yeah.
And then also you have specific filters in addition to your well water that make your water so special. So healing.
Well,
makes your water so healing. Hey,
first
Jake,
thing
can I
is,
borrow a pen?
that's number 6.
Throw it at
number
you.
6.
It'll be a dart. It'll be a dartboard with a pen in a minute.
Number 6. I got in trouble 6 times. Anyway, man, I don't get in trouble very often, but it's just kind of funny.
You know why you're getting in trouble? It's probably not bothering anyone else, but that kind of stuff does. I pick up on it.
No, it does me too. If it's myself, it doesn't bother me. But it bothers me when it's somebody else, and that obviously I know there's a whole lot in there. But anyway, yeah, I get what you're saying. Let me put it down because it isn't something that's beneficial.
Okay.
Yeah. So water. Like you said, I don't spray anything on my yard because I don't want it going down into the water table. Now there's arguments there that it would take years and years and years and excess amounts to get down to the water table, and I do, however, believe that is sound judgment, but at the same time,
you want to.
I live here for 10 years, or I live here for 20 years, or somebody else moves in after me. I don't want the water table to be contaminated if I can help from it.
Right.
There are situations where I'm like, oh, man, that was unfortunate that happened, or whatever. Spilling gasoline on the grass whenever I'm trying to fill up my lawnmower because the nozzle breaks and it goes. Sorry, it happened. Don't feel good about it. I try to mitigate those things. But
I think it's called integrity.
Yeah, integrity.
It's just don't be a shitty human.
Yeah.
Like, actually think about somebody other than yourself.
Yeah.
And have forethought of what the fuck happens beyond right this second.
For sure.
And how it impacts not just yourself and others. Sorry.
Exactly. No, it's
Sorry,
great.
I can be an asshole, you guys. But, I mean, it's called standards.
Yeah.
Like, if we would fucking raise our standards, then, like we talked about earlier, if we'd sit our asses down at the fucking dinner table and have a conversation every once in a while like we used to, then we might have a chance of flipping this shit.
And not just over dinner. Because everybody wants to get up and go back to their distractions.
Well, actually, we could talk about dinner for a whole, and that's actually kind of why we're talking about this conversation and why it might bleed into 3 episodes. But we're starting with water and we're starting with beef and that kind of stuff. But we've hinted it's all about what we consume, and there are tons of products that we can talk about and recommend that are not well for you.
Yeah.
To stay away from. But anyways.
So
back to.
Try to cut down on toxins from the environment as far as me or whatever else. I've got the water management runoff from other properties mitigated or controlled so that I don't have all that running onto my property.
Nice.
And ultimately that keeps toxins out. But then also I have a 3-tiered water filtration system. It's sediment, heavy metals, and chemicals. The only problem with that is that, like I said earlier, it doesn't filter out hormones, which hopefully there's less in the groundwater supply than there would be in like city water or whatever. Right. And then I've got a UV bacteria light filter as well. So it's fed through a tube that's got a UV light in it to kill bacteria as it streams through the system. And so anyway, and then I don't put, here at our house, because obviously our water from our house ultimately ends up back into the soil, whether you have septic lines or aerobic septic system like we have with water sprinklers that essentially treat the water with toxin eating bacteria, and then it sprays in water sprinkler in the yard. And a lot of people have those nowadays, and they're common all over the United States, but a lot of people don't necessarily understand the technology and how it works. And so you can put bleach in those, but you don't have to put bleach in those. You can put bacteria packets in there that will essentially sanitize the water as well, because it'll go into a dirty tank, it'll go into a mixture tank that mixes with the bacteria and so on, and then the water after that goes into a clean water tank that's sprayed out in a water sprinkler in your yard, and then you would pump out a solid tank in the future, like a septic system. But anyway, so
you're telling me that the good bacteria helps filter everything out.
It helps filter everything. And
so that's interesting. I want you to continue that, but maybe we should go to probiotics and prebiotics and stuff next, and how that helps our overall gut and health and stuff. But anyway, what were you saying?
No, that's it. So that's just part of the water management. And then I also have I don't have it installed, but I have all the parts to do it. And all I would have to do is shut off the water and install this device and then continue on. But if we don't stay here forever, I don't want to install it. But it's a hand water pump that installs inline in my water closet. And I can hand pump the water lines in our house, utilizing the will and infrastructure that's already there, even if we don't have electricity.
Nice. And you're a handy guy, so you can install that really quickly if you needed to.
It's all I have to do is just plug and play. I could isolate it, but again, I don't want to install it and then have to rip it out and then redo it. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to leave it here and have to buy another one, and potentially maybe they're not being sold anymore. They were really hard to find, and they were really expensive, and that was pre-COVID, and so I want to say it was like $750 for this hand water pump back then in 2017. And so who knows what they are now, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's another thing that I have in my water, for my water as well here at the house, just in case. But anyway, that being said, the probiotics was the last thing that you said you wanted to address.
Yeah, probiotics and prebiotics. So
probiotic and prebiotics, yeah.
So I can do a real big deep dive in this, but I'll make it quick. The things that I know that are most beneficial when it comes to choosing probiotics is where I want to start. If you consume a probiotic that has to be refrigerated to survive, then what do you think is going to happen as soon as it hits your stomach and your body temperature, warms up to your body temperature? Those are going to die. So I recommend number one, you do not need it. It does not need refrigeration. 2, you want to choose specific probiotics that do specific things, and you also want to make sure that it has specific enzymes that do specific things also. Enzymes that I'm talking about, there are specific enzymes that can break through the exoskeleton. It's called, what happens with Candida fungus whenever it is allowed to grow uncontrollably in your gut lining. The whole reason that you have Candida to begin with is for your, when you die, it literally helps to take over your body and decompose your body so that you go back into the earth. And so what's happening is our modern diet, our lack of nutrients, the things that we're putting in our body, the things that we were just talking about with our water, and all of the different toxic things that we're not able to detox if things aren't working properly. All of this is happening because of the overgrowth of Candida fungus. It's contributing to the growth of it and its progression. And what happens is it begins to form, it lines the gut wall, the lining of your gut. It forms an exoskeleton along the other side of it called the chitin or chitin layer, however it's pronounced. And then it begins to eat holes in the lining of your gut and your stomach. And that's what causes leaky gut and leaky gut syndrome and all the things that everybody talks about when it comes to autoimmune disease and disorders and syndromes and all the things. So there are also prebiotics that I don't know a whole lot about. I just know that prebiotics, specific ones, will feed probiotics and kind of like give them the fuel that they need to do their job better. And there are different probiotics that do different jobs than others. And the specific enzymes, if you can get down to the very specific ones, will actually eat holes in that chitin layer, that exoskeleton, and it will begin to dissolve it, if you will, and keep you, basically help you to overcome whatever autoimmune problem that you're having, those kinds of things. So, I'm not sure if there's anything else that I need to mention about probiotics and prebiotics. I pretty much covered it all and how all of that works and blah, 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 blah. So essentially what's happening, if you guys were paying attention, okay, is that you are dying. You're dying from the inside out. Slow, painful dysfunction of all of your organs. And I can, again, attest to this because I have literally been down the road of breakdown from a very early age. Oh, and you talked about the HPV vaccine. Okay, so no, I didn't have the HPV vaccine. I did, however, go on Depo-Provera, which is it's an injection that lasts for a year or some kind of shit that puts you into not having a period at all, major suppression. I think it actually is very connected to Lupron, which is another suppressant that they give to like prostate cancer patients that they also gave to endometriosis patients at the time, which is what I went through. So from the whole time we were in Germany, I was under Lupron hormone suppressant. Yeah, big time. And so all of my surgeries, I came back for 5 different abdominal surgeries because of endometriosis. And we just talked about how all of these things related, right? But what I was trying to say about
we talked
right, exactly.
Our web.
But what I was trying to say about
2 episodes ago. I don't know how long these episodes are going to be. But
I usually, some of them are long, like 3 hours, and I usually break those into like 2 different episodes. Part 1 and 2.
Be good if you didn't do that.
Keep it going long. Really.
Yeah.
Make it long
form. I don't think, like if it's all
one. If it happens continuously, like we'll just do this one like that. That's cool. We can do that. But those didn't actually, I'm thinking about 2 different, it was the same subject and it ended up being that long, but it was 2 different recordings, like 2 different dates.
Yeah.
So you think keep it long form like that as long as...
Just let it go. Yeah, man. If somebody wants to listen to it, they're going to enjoy it a lot more without having to switch to another episode or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
And then if people want to skip through, they can skip through or whatever. And you can actually go on YouTube if you want to, and you can split up segments to where you actually mark it.
And put a timestamp thing. What do they call that?
Yep.
Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had, one significant thing that I wanted to say about
the
all
toxins
that.
from the birth control. You were talking about your idea that it could have definitely contributed to your endometriosis and ultimately your cancer, your breast cancer.
Yes, all of that for sure. The whatever you call it, like the timeline of all of my things that I've dealt with over the years. But so a couple of different things recently. We talked about the organ meat and how and the organ supplements that have made a significant improvement in things.
Mm-hmm.
But
bioavailable nutrients.
Right, but here's why. So I've done a lot of research on this recently because I just got to thinking before I ever even started the supplement that my brain just does things. It's really funny how the universe brings things to me. God will just, okay, I'm not a prophet, so, and I promise I'm not a witch. Like, this part drives me crazy, where people will literally write people off because I'm not a man of God and not prophesying over people, so therefore I must be a witch.
What?
If you have anything to say that is out there, like, I don't know
Somebody
how.
thinks you're a witch?
Oh, people say it all the time. Like, you can't listen to anybody that if they're not a man of God and prophesying, then they have to be a witch and they're a demon, and you can't listen to anything that they say.
You know what, Jen? I am really impressed that they figured out the truth so fast. You must have actually shared enough on the internet where people actually know how you are and
right?
who you are.
Exactly. They missed one. Motherfuckers. Anyway, so my whole...
Jennifer's favorite animal is a cat.
Negative.
You get that reference? There's people that say that... I guess there's people out there that think cats are witches reincarnated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, cats are not my favorite animal. They seem to be yours lately with all the kitties you have around here. They're
Man,
so
I'm
cute.
telling you, I don't want a cat in my house and blah, 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 blah. Like, it'd be cool. I like the idea of having a cat in the house where it's like a Garfield cat. It's always clean, no fleas. It's potty trained, and it, like, flushes the toilet after it goes. You know what I mean? That'd be great. That'd be a cool cat. But living on a farm, we've got kids running in and out all the time. The cat'd be outside, it'd be inside. We'd be chasing the cat all the time. Oh no, Fluffy got out, and it's not the outside cat. No, sorry. But they're a fantastic farm animal. I think they
really are.
They seriously...
Well, I actually have heard opposite of all of that they literally... repel demons. They literally protect you.
They earn their
in a
keep,
spiritual world. That's literally what their purpose is, and that's why. Okay, oh my gosh, blow my mind. Maybe we just need to get into this conversation and quit saying, well, we don't want to get into the conversation about religion and all spirits and all this stuff. But I mean, we just keep coming back to it. And anyway, long story short, to say, for whatever reason, I was inspired to go down this rabbit hole of not just... My whole life I've been anemic, Jake. My whole life I've been anemic. And my whole life, every doctor has said, well, you're anemic. You can take these iron supplements. Well, okay, is it a big deal? What is the... I don't really like the way they make, I'd rather not take it. Okay, well, yeah, it's no big deal. It'll just make you sleepy, tired. You might not have as much energy, and you might be cold all the time. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. So, anyways.
Hormones, man.
Iron levels in your blood are the foundation of health. And on top of that, not HPV vaccine, but when you were put in the hospital for mono, I was extremely sick, just as ill as you were. Not in the hospital, still going to work every day, sick as a dog. Could not figure out what was wrong with me. I was testing negative for mono. I tested negative for AIDS. I tested negative for absolutely everything by, praise God, like the grace of whatever. And like, thank you. But I did test positive for something that is extremely common. 90% of the population has this. 90% of the population has this, and they never even know that they have it because it's asymptomatic. It doesn't cause any problem whatsoever unless you are under trauma, stress, toxins.
What?
Epstein-Barr.
What that is.
And cytomegalovirus. Both of those I tested positive for. If you are in a state of toxic trauma and stress, which I have been fight or flight my entire adult life, and left in that state, it can develop into chronic major illness, including cancer. Huh. So, all my life, I learned this when I was 20-something. You were in high school. I was 21-ish. This is like 2001. That's when we were living in Norman. Everybody thinks I'm an absolute psycho because I can remember where I am at specific points and dates-ish, years, all the way down to the year, sometimes even the exact month.
Wow, that's impressive.
But anyways, yeah, and it's all because I've moved around so much, so I relate what I'm doing in my life to where I was living, and I know what those dates were. So anyways, long story short, that was such a fun time in life, by the way. We lived over in Norman on campus. Like, we could walk a couple of miles to the stadium, and my husband at the time was a student at OU, and so we had student tickets, and we got to go to all the games, and it was a fun time in life. That was back when I was drinking some, and before I was smoking weed. And lots of really fun tailgating parties. Man, we had some times. Lots of good times over there.
Yeah.
Such a fun we lived right next door to the Firehouse Museum, which is an art museum now. And I was in photography then. I was I just finished my black and white course at OCCC. And so I took over the darkroom there just so I could have access to it. And there was a black and white class that I took there too. And man, that was such an incredible time in my life. We lived there from 01 to 05, and I got to just go and be in the darkroom anytime I wanted to. That right there is like, if there's one place on earth that is my happy place, it is the darkroom.
It's cool. You should do it.
Absolute goal in life is to have a darkroom again, and to get back into developing my own film and just the toxins. I mean, shit, that's when everything started. And look at all the toxins that I was exposed to for years. I literally took over the darkroom, as in mixing the chemicals for everyone's access to the darkroom, just so I could have free access to it.
Spilled it on.
So every week, weekly, I went in there and did all the chemicals.
Yeah. For
years. All the things that we do that we are not, it's just information. That's again why we do this podcast. It's not to force anything on anyone, but it's to give you the information, the research that we have done that has empowered us to change our lifestyle for the better
and life experiences.
Yeah, so that's why we're here. That's why we do this podcast.
And man, I've lived a life.
We both have a lot. You know, that's something that kind of has bothered me in conversation sometimes with Dad, because, and actually, I'd like to get your perspective on this sometime, because last year is when, April 14th, is when I took my first round of chemo. And before that, I ended up in the emergency room down at Dean A. McGee in Houston. Mom and Dad, I'd gotten really, really sick, and I knew that I was going to have to just give in to chemo, and I was trying to get all that going here, and I hadn't eaten since November, since Thanksgiving. I was doing everything I could to do protein shakes whenever I could, but I was just so nauseated all the time, and everything I put in my stomach, I just rejected. I was throwing up constantly. I had a horrible pain in my stomach. I was going to work every single day. It was horrible. I was throwing up in the bathroom all day long at work. It was in a public restroom. Jeez. I don't even know how many employees we had in Oklahoma City. It was just insane. So anyways, like 200 and something employees just in Oklahoma City that we use this restroom all the time. It was insane. Maybe not that many. I don't know. It was a lot. It was too many. You know what I mean? To be throwing up all day. So long story short, I had moved. I was anticipating having to go on short-term disability because I had ran out of sick leave, and they weren't willing to offer me to, work from home on the days that I was too ill to come into the office. So I was going to have to miss out on pay. All these things meant I was going to not be able to afford my vehicle any longer to be able to get back and forth to work to begin with, you know what I mean? Let alone get back and forth to treatment, that kind of stuff. So short-term disability would allow me a little bit of income so I could at least pay for Uber if I lived closer between, we live in Bridge Creek, and my treatment is up in Mercy, which is off of Memorial, which is about 45 minutes drive. Anyways, long story short, I moved in closer, like right down the road from work, so that I could at least Uber back and forth, blah, 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 blah. I don't even know where I'm going with this whole story. What was it? Where were we going with this?
You were talking about
There was a point. There was a significant point.
You had to stop working? Is that where you were going with this? Because you were explaining...
I ended up at, not D.A. McGee, MD Anderson.
Yeah, MD Anderson.
MD
yes.
Anderson in Houston.
Yeah.
And they helped, they helped me get my pain and nausea under control, and then I was able to eat at that point. And so then I started chemo a few days later, came back. They had the same exact protocol that everyone else had suggested, gave into that, and from the moment that I started chemo, I started feeling nothing but better, which is the weirdest thing in the world, because everyone that I have ever heard of that went on chemo did nothing but feel terrible the whole entire time that they were on it.
So it has a lot to do with your nutrition. I mean, the way that you were living, the lifestyle you're living, your mental state, because you had to work
what's
through
weird,
the mental
Jacob,
state
so
too.
for one, I hadn't been able to have any kind of nutrients from November to April.
Fasting.
There you go. Fasting probably helps more than anything. And that's why I wasn't even really concerned. I mean, I had lost a lot of weight. I didn't have a lot of weight to lose to begin with. I mean, where I am now is 5 pounds heavier than I have ever been, or than I have consistently been throughout the most of my adult life. There was a moment when I was on those hormone suppressants in Germany, those injections of Lucron, that they said that I would gain at least 50 pounds on. I gained 30 pounds on. I went from 145 to almost 180. Yeah, and so that's when I came back from Germany. I was the biggest I'd ever been, and I absolutely hated every second of it. Oh my God, I hated that life. And that lasted until about 2013, and what prompted that was plexus. My friend she was like, Jen, I know what's wrong with you. You have a fungus problem. And I was like, no, I don't. I looked down at my toes, and I was like, no, girl, I don't, because in my mind, toenail fungus is the only, you know what I mean? No. That's when I did the deep dive into what I did was I trusted her, and I started only one product, which was their ProBio 5, which is a probiotic, and it has specific enzymes that do exactly what I explained earlier. So there's a specific blend of probiotics, a specific blend of enzymes with the probiotics, and that's what they do and why it is such an effective product. So that's what I've learned about probiotics, and all of that is, one, you don't want it to have to be refrigerated. You want to make sure you have specific probiotics and enzymes, blah, blah, blah. And then the probiotics, or the prebiotics, we said, feed all of the probiotics the right things.
Instead of just saying that, so for example, you can get a prebiotic, which is... A prebiotic would be like a sauerkraut. Sauerkraut's a prebiotic, but it also has probiotics in it. And so the liquid you'll have probiotics in, and the prebiotics will be the actual cabbage itself.
Okay.
And so...
So the ferment, well, it's all fermented,
yeah.
but yeah, okay.
So it's just a different form of nutrients for the...
in a natural form of probiotics and prebiotics
right.
that you can get
yeah.
in the whole foods. And that's kind of our whole goal.
And it doesn't have to be refrigerated. I mean,
right.
Like you can put it in a jar, you can buy them in a bag that's at room temperature, like, that's good. I mean,
right.
There's varying degrees of purity, depending on what you get. Is it an organic cabbage that has
right.
prebiotics?
Is it indigenous? We talked about
you
that in the
like,
previous episode.
There's going to be different levels to this, but
right.
That's
essentially.
Yes, essentially, and then there's when it comes down to nutrition and digestion, there's so many things that go into that as well, because I've read a lot about blood type diet, and as to why a blood type diet is really important, and it has to do with the enzymes that you have in your body naturally, comparatively to somebody that was more dispositioned to eating seafood or whatever because
right.
of the geographical region that they grew up in, and how your ancestors used to eat. And so for whatever reason with me, I'm O positive, and my recommended blood type diet is meat and berries. For the most part, meat and berries, raw dairy, not in excess, but raw dairy, and then animal fats.
And that's very close to the carnivore diet. If you wanted
right.
to relate it to something like that.
But my digestion, in coordination with probiotics, prebiotics in my internal bacteria, I am light years better off when I stick to meat and berries.
Right.
Across the board.
Right.
With cognition, with energy, with sleep, with everything.
And the cleaner those products are, the better you feel also.
Yeah. It's not about me being an elitist. I want to just be as healthy as I can be, because I want to live this life as long as I can, so that I can have even more influence on creating a great environment for others in the future.
Right. So, sourdough. Tell us what you know about sourdough. You guys have made a huge switch. You went through a transition. We talked about this last podcast. You went through a transition of cutting things out completely, and then eventually you've learned more things, and you've introduced more things, and you've improved things, and sourdough is one of those things.
Sourdough, for sure.
And it's not just sourdough bread. You guys use sourdough to make everything that a normal person consumes when it comes to what they enjoy on a daily basis, or whatever, as far as pancakes.
Kayla makes crackers, waffles, pancakes, biscuits,
so
rolls,
even like snacks for the kids, like
pies.
If it were goldfish crackers, you make everything your own. Chips, pie crust.
Yeah, and using healthy oils like tallow, beef fat, animal fat, or
biscuits,
and
English
then,
muffins.
Actual real butter. We can't really find any raw butter locally, but we get raw milk, and we make our own butter and cheese from time to time. Not all the time. Sometimes it's just more convenient to buy something that's a little bit more expensive that is a better option than most things in the supermarket.
Kerrygold is what I use. What do you use?
Kerrygold. Yeah. Kerrygold, and then when it comes down to cheese, we buy the Kirkland cheese. It's supposed to be grown with raised with no hormones and stuff.
Kirkland has a lot of organic options.
And then
and you find that at Costco, by the way.
Yeah. And then
you can find some of it on Amazon also.
Yeah. And then so sourdough. Like I've even made sourdough apple pies, and Kayla makes pies all the time too. I just wanted an apple pie, and I wanted to try and make it. Pizza crust is a
big thing you guys do. Pizza family crust, pizza night. Oh my gosh, those are the best.
And the longer you actually mix your sourdough starter and leave it with your mixed dough, so let's just say you're making rolls, so like 2 cups of flour or 4 cups of flour, I think.
Tortillas even.
And then you can do sourdough starter with 1 cup, and then you mix whatever, milk or water and butter and salt and baking soda. Well, anyway, so then you make your dough. Hey!
What y'all doing?
I don't know where Mommy's.
Oh, you don't? Okay. 2 things.
Sourdough. We need to finish this sourdough dough.
Okay. Oh, I want to come back to that, but real quick.
All over the place.
These are 2 really big things. So, one, a couple years ago, I posted on social media. Tana had posted something about a network marketing something. I don't know, something another about how I think in maybe another podcast I've mentioned this, but how it was something that she had done with the group of women that she was with, involved with that particular company that she was with, and how life-giving it was, and something like that. And what I found in all the different companies like that, direct sales companies, I have a completely different perspective of those types of companies than a lot of people do. And there was a point in time where there was a pyramid scheme that went around in the 80s or something, and that all kind of got a bad rap. And there are a lot of companies out there that just...
Recording?
Yeah, that just jumped on the bandwagon and, for profit and that kind of stuff. And some of them are great, some of them aren't. And you just have to use discernment, just like everything else, you know what I mean? But don't discount that, because there are a lot of companies out there that a lot of families have really benefited from. So if that's something that interests you, then I definitely encourage you to align with something that, is something that you can be proud of, and promote that and use that as a model to benefit your family. Elevate your life and your family, because there are a lot of really good people that are involved in that. And what I posted on social media was how much it just makes me, it makes my heart explode with with so much gratitude and so much optimism and outlook of like our future, because so many children today are being raised by adults, families, parents that have been a part of network marketing companies that do influence like self-growth and just being the best, living optimally, you know what I mean? And so I'm super excited about our future because of that. I'm such an advocate for our children and our future. They are our future.
Yeah, it's like most content creators nowadays, or a lot of them, they have like supplements that they offer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's products that they believe in. And what I think is great about that, a lot of people are like, oh, they're just doing it for the money. Well, no, actually, they're just sharing the things that have helped them, just exactly like we are. We don't peddle any specific product and benefit from anything. But
I couldn't tell you the name of any of my supplements. Well, I use that mushroom coffee, but I can't even tell you what the name of it is.
Yeah,
it's called
Dose
mushroom coffee.
Is what I use. Dose. By the way, let me just real quick. I just totally...
So expensive.
Yeah, I know, but speaking of, literally got my brand new package, opened it yesterday, tried to put it in my canister. Instead, I thought I was putting it in my canister, and I was actually putting it in my cup of water to make one dose. And I put half of the bag. I scooped out as much as I could, but I ended up having to make cold brew out of it because there was so much left. It was so strong.
That's
okay. Well, I just hope it doesn't,
lose its nutrients.
Its potency of its nutrients. Anyway, okay, long story. Okay, the other thing I wanted to say was, this is such an amazing moment for me. And I've had this a lot over the last year, but today for sure, if I were to die today, I am so fulfilled in life that, literally, I was talking to Mom last night because Dad, he mentioned, they're wanting to expand the driveway and the blacktop and move the fence, and have they mentioned all this, and they want to build a pad. Okay, so they want, in all of that, they've got to move the trailer anyway to be able to blacktop the driveway, so they want to move the trailer inside the fence in the yard. So he was saying that, he was like, I don't know what your plan is, but, if your plan is to stay here, we want you to, and this is what we want to do. And he was like, I just want you to be healthy. I just want you to stay healthy, And I was like, well, I am, Dad, and you guys have been a huge source of that. I mean, providing this has been instrumental in being healthy and staying healthy. And so I was telling Mom, I was like, kind of trying to throw around some other ideas, maybe ways to save money and all what we're doing, there are options, things that we may not think about. Well, I was like, honestly, I'm being really selfish right now, but I am at a point in life where this is literally the dream life. You know what I mean? I'm living a minimal lifestyle, and it is the most fulfilling I've ever felt in my entire life. You know what I mean? I don't need all the things, the keeping up with the Joneses like we talked about earlier. All I need right now are supplements. I need money to provide supplements and buy healthy food and in that kind of thing, and buy gas to get back and forth to whatever. You know what I mean? That's all I need right now. And everything that they have helped provide over the last year has provided that. You know what I mean? So, No, I don't have any plans to do anything different than what I'm doing right now, because I believe so much in what we are doing with our time. I'm trying everything I can to make the best use of the time that I have been given, you know what I mean, and this lifestyle that I've been afforded. And going to work full time just to make money so that I can have a car, so that I can pay my own bills, to live by myself and be by myself all of the time, isn't really what I want out of life at this point. You know what I mean? I've lived we talked about earlier, we've lived so much life, and a lot of that has been away from the people that mean the most to me. You know what I mean? So being able to come and on a Friday afternoon, spur of the moment, hey, I've got some time, you want to come over and have a conversation, is exactly the life that I want. You know what I mean? So yeah, I completely fulfilled. Love it. Life is perfect. Perfect. If nothing else, if we go no higher than right now, amazing. That doesn't mean that I don't have aspirations to do more, right? We've talked about that last episode. We talked a lot about that. And I feel like this is part of that. You know what I mean? This is the healing part that I can control right now, and I'm doing everything I can within my power to bring all of that to real life. So, anyways, back to sourdough. Sourdough bread.
No, it's all great points. What I've always found with those types of organizations and stuff like that, like I use dose, not necessarily treating candida, you know what I mean?
But I feel so. Real quick, the reason that I chose to do dose is because I was having such a lymphedema problem with my right arm, and they say that caffeine contributes to lymphedema really bad. And I really enjoy like getting up in the morning and going outside when no one else is awake. Like I've been getting up at 5:55 every morning for years because that's when no one else is awake. You know what I mean? And so I have my time, even if it's just 30 minutes, to sit with myself, with my thoughts, with, you know, the God, meditate, whatever it is that I want to do in the morning with coffee, you know what I mean? So I chose dose to sourdough bread for coffee replacement, and then it has nutrients in it also.
Yeah, so the longer you let the sourdough mixture from the starter sit in with the added ingredients, the better off the benefits of the sourdough bread when it's ingested. So
the longer it can
there's going to be more bacteria in the bread that are beneficial bacteria, and it's just going to, it's kind of, think of it like a virus or something like that. Not a virus, but you know, it's a being that spreads. Think of it like moss on the ground.
Bacteria.
You know what I mean? So it's just got to spread like that, and
a good bacteria.
So the longer that you let that sourdough starter sit with the mixture of added ingredients, the more beneficial sourdough bread is.
The more it ferments.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the whole benefit of sourdough bread is, they say, there's a couple of things I've heard about it that
you're getting pre and probiotics.
Okay, and then I've heard that it not only like gives you pre and probiotics, but it literally, if you eat it does something specific to your blood sugar.
Oh yeah. It actually blocks your body. It changes the way your body uptakes,
like metabolizes sugar, and keeps it from spiking your insulin or whatever. Regulates your blood sugar, essentially.
Regulates blood sugar, yeah.
So if you eat that first thing in the day, I've heard that you can literally eat it for breakfast and it'll help regulate your blood sugar throughout the entire day. Mm-hmm. No, I've seen a guy that did an experiment where he literally ate some sourdough first and then he ate a Snickers, and it did not spike his insulin at all.
That's interesting.
And he tried it 2 days in a row.
I've seen the comparison between breads that are not sourdough.
And how they spike.
I hadn't seen the candy bar thing. But still, it's all about, I feel like everybody gets back to this idea of moderation, but I feel like people don't understand the definition of moderation. Or at least way that I view moderation from the standpoint of health.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
I saw something recently.
Something like 90-10. 90% of the time, 10% of the time types of things, to where you're not never, indulging in the things that you like.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
However, the more often you don't indulge in the things that aren't healthy for you, the better off you'll be whenever you do. It's
like 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah.
If you're not eating it, you're doing so much better than actually eating it.
And so I think that's just, we kind of need to shift the way that we think about moderation. So I understand the definition of moderation is the middle ground, right? Middle ground, but...
Well, but it's been interpreted wrong.
Not just
as far
based
as
on
what
quantity
the Bible says,
frequency.
it's not everything in moderation. It's
discriminately.
Each thing individually, essentially what you just said, each thing individually has its own moderation. Yeah. So, obviously you can have so much more water that's going to be before it is detriment than, the Snickers bar.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
And people think it's just so difficult to eat healthy, when in reality it's simple.
It's very simple.
You cut down on the amount of things that you eat. You don't have to come up with as many different types of recipes. It's really basic, you know what I mean? And then if times are limiting based upon having a family, or, oh man, we just didn't plan for dinner, what are we going to do? It's real easy to throw something together really fast. And so
because it's already
it's
ready,
convenient, it's easy, and you can just eat some ground beef that's seasoned however you like to season it, and then eat some fruit or vegetables. If you want to go that route, that's fine. But
well, you guys even season your ground beef for like breakfast pizza or whatever to taste like sausage kind of.
Yeah. We
like
just use specific herbs and spices, and that's another thing that I would like to get more involved with in the future, is growing my own more so than buying. And it's relatively simple to grow your own herb garden, and you don't need a big space to supply your family with the most herbs that you probably use. You know, cilantro, oregano, whatever. You could even do black pepper. There are some spices that are harder based upon growing environment, but
Mom's
still.
really good. She's always been really good about growing herbs. She does sage and basil and cilantro and all of those different things.
So that's something we're going to add. But yeah, there's so many things that we've done. Like
rosemary,
for instance, you know, when we get under the weather, or or just place where we're trying to detox, or maybe we've been subjected to something and have a cough, or whatever it may be, we jump on it with herbs and essential oils. Every single thing that we do, that's the first place that we go, and try to figure out what possibly the issue is. And then we've got a couple different books that we reference, and then online about natural remedies and medicine and stuff like that with specific herbs. There's herbalists out there. You can go and read about what it is to be an herbalist.
Yeah.
Which I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just saying.
No. Yeah, for our listeners, I was going to say that there's even locally a, what do they call it, foraging? Like somebody that will take you on hikes and show you all the different things. And how to
we found things in our yard that we used.
Yeah, purslane. We were just talking about.
Plantain.
Purslane is...
shepherd's purse.
Grows all over everywhere.
Might be the bad one. Anyway, and then remedies to poison ivy, to where within 3 feet of where poison ivy grows, the remedy grows as well.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And so just different things that we've been learning.
For our listeners, we know this, but I recently was clearing out a section at Mom and Dad's, and I've never gotten poison ivy in my life, but I think I ended up with 2 spots back here on the back of my arm that were like poison ivy, and because they kept itching and just weren't getting any better. I thought they were maybe a bug bite or something, but it kept bothering me. Well, anyways, my friend Cindy, she's a PA and has always been like kind of specialized in women's hormones and that kind of stuff, but she also has a PhD in natural medicine. Well, anyways, she completely believes in these touch-tone drops. They're like a detoxifying type, pulls heavy metals out, different things like that. This particular one is for gut health. There's a brain one and a gut one. And so anyways, it helps like protect you from, if you do just a couple drops with water every day, it can help strengthen your immune system and keep you from getting viruses and all kinds of different things like that. So that's one thing that I've done consistently throughout this year also is she's been giving me those. And so I just about every day will take a couple of drops of those or whatever. Well, anyways, she suggested that I take dab a couple of drops of that on those bites, those areas. That cleared up within overnight. I did it when I went to bed, and by the next morning, it was not itching anymore. The redness had subsided. It looked like it was like a little bit of scarring, but
drying up.
Totally dried up. So then I gave some to Kayla for Leon to put on his face after the Highland Games, and that's what cleared it. You guys have been using all kinds of different stuff, and literally within a couple of hours, that cleared up and went away. That's what they ended up putting on it. So it's those touch-tone drops, and it's just I don't know.
I have to read into it.
Yeah. Anyways, just another thing that has worked. I mean, just whatever you come across that works, right? Okay, so we've finished up with sourdough bread, and I just wanted to touch on protein in eggs and how we won't get into like raising chickens and all that. We'll save that for another time. But real quick, I've heard that eating protein first and very first thing that you do before anything else will help, just like we talked about with sourdough, as far as regulating, one, with energy and that kind of stuff too, but it also helps to regulate blood sugar and those kind of things. And if you're new to this, the reason that all of that is so important, most people think regulating blood sugar is only important for diabetics. But what I've learned throughout this whole journey over the last couple of years is cancer is a metabolic disease, meaning blood sugar plays a huge role in the development of cancer. So regulating your blood sugar is not just for diabetics, it's literally for longevity and health of anyone to avoid getting into chronic disease.
3 leading causes of death in the United States: diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. And they're all foodborne illnesses.
Yeah.
And then everything else is foodborne toxins.
Yeah. So my situation environment was like literally the best recipe for poor health and cancer, right? Like I started out with all these issues that we talked about earlier that set me up for that, right? And so I had this environment already that was really toxic and stressed. And then I'm not putting proper nutrients in it either.
Yeah, I mean,
there you go.
It's a perfect storm.
It is.
Yeah, protein. The argument's there that everything that we have in our body, every being, every part of us is all created by how much protein you have. If you don't have protein, you don't have the building blocks of life.
Well, and I think that comes back to the iron production.
Yeah.
Like I talked about earlier, nobody's talking about this. I
Yeah,
literally, when I figured
red
it out, I wrote a blog post to timestamp it that literally I haven't seen anyone else anywhere, even the doctors that I've consulted about it. They're like, oh yeah, whatever. Still.
It is.
Even with my research.
Lack of meat.
Yeah.
Lack of protein, specifically red meat. Iron. I mean, you can get it in other ways, but there's such low quantities and so many different things, in the things that we eat regularly, that you have to be intentional about it if you're not going to get it from red meat.
Right.
Which some people, like our family, our main source of food is red meat.
Yeah.
And
where mine, even though I've been raised in this environment, mine is not. My main source of protein is eggs.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of benefits from eating eggs as well.
And it kind of goes back, I never did any research on the blood type diet, but once I actually did, it was amazing how my whole life, the things that I've eaten and wanted to eat are completely in alignment with my blood type, which is A positive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't require a lot of meat. You can eat some,
Yeah.
but for the most part, the fact that I crave grains and rice and all of that kind of stuff is related to the blood type, evidently.
Yeah. So,
not the glyphosate
yeah,
full Roundup
yeah,
that we deal with today, but
yeah, glyphosate.
glyphosate, yeah, not glyphosate.
Yeah. So it's just you gotta have protein, and I think most Americans are protein deprived, because if you don't have the protein to rebuild your cells, I mean, there's an argument that your body completely regenerates anew in every 70 days.
Right. Even your liver is completely.
Now, some cells regenerate faster.
Yeah.
But top to bottom, head to toe, right to left, all the cells in your body, the argument is it takes 70 days for your body to be brand new. And so if that's the case, then obviously there's different stages based upon different parts of your body that regrow faster, but what you're eating is fueling that.
Yes.
And if you don't, that's why when you get older, you get thin skin. You're not getting the collagen and silica and stuff that you would normally get from eating animals. And, there's just, people are dying and living shorter lives due to lack of nutrients in their body. It used to be, generations ago, lack of access to food, lack of clean food.
Yeah.
And things like that. And so lifespans were shorter. Things were a lot more dangerous. It was a lot more unruly, less laws, more chaos. And as we've gotten more civilized, we do see the chaos more frequent, but it's not necessarily that it's more frequent.
More
you know
rampant
what I mean?
or growing,
rampant.
or it's
And
actually getting less and less, but we're seeing more and more of it.
It's just highly televised. But anyway, so you just need to make sure that you have the proper amount of protein and proper nutrients, and that people that are dying are nutrient deprived. I'd say 90% of Americans are nutrient deprived. They've got plenty of calories. Plenty of calories, but those are dead calories.
Well, and that seed oils, that's another thing. Like seed oils and the way that they disrupt everything and cause inflammation and all of this. So that's another thing that you can do. Like I don't know if we mentioned this earlier or not, but tallow, beef tallow, things like that are a great, better option.
Yeah, and sugar
oil
contributes to inflammation. Right. Sugar contributes to too many carbohydrates, just like seed oils. Toxins in your food or on your body as far as hygiene products. There's endocrine disruptors in soaps and deodorants and so on and so forth. And, you need to, literally I use a brand, it's called Defense Soap. It's literally like jojoba oil, coconut oil, and essential oils. That's literally pretty much what all of us use. And if that doesn't give us the prettiest hair, this, that, and the other, whatever, we don't care. That's just what we use. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then we try to make sure that we have pretty hair and all that, or whatever,
you can
healthy
use castor
otherwise
oil
based upon nutrients
curls
we eat.
And stuff like that. Like, you don't have to use all of the toxic products that are out there.
Yeah, so it's just, we're trying to combat the toxins in our world and our environment and in our lives from every direction possible. You know what I mean? Just like if you go into war, you've got battle plans, and you need to assess it from all different directions. Rather than just have a narrow view, and so that's ultimately the way that I look at most everything in my life. I'm really analytical about things, not to overanalyze, but just to put myself in different perspectives, whether it be people that I have a conversation with, or how I'm perceived in the moment, so that I can steer a conversation, or it's just part of the battle plan. I'm trying to be a better person, a better father, a better husband, a better human, and these are all the things that I've learned to help me get through, because I feel better. Yeah. And if I didn't feel better, I wouldn't be making these changes.
So for me, it was not as much physical and a little more like on a...
For the longest time, Lincoln would pass out whenever he got really upset and hurt, or feeling hurt, and not necessarily feeling hurt, like if he fell and bumped his head, like all kids do, or whatever. And it wasn't like it was his head the first time. You could scrape his knee, and he could scrape his knee or whatever. And he would just get so upset, and he would pass out. And then he'd cut stiff as a board and just pass out. And apparently it's a condition where kids, for whatever reason, are having a hard time regulating their emotions, and they just pass out, and then they just come right back. And
kind of like the fainting goats.
Yeah, kind of like a fainting goat. And
it's terrible, but...
So anyway, you can just tell with your kids' cries if they're throwing a fit or if they're really hurt. And so anytime that he's really hurt, I always get up, because he could be standing up and just so upset, and with nobody around, he'd just fall over.
Yeah, and hurt himself worse.
Yeah. So I got to get up every time.
Well, no, it's good, and it's good to give them the attention they need at the time. I mean, and
Which it sounds really bad, like it's only happened like 4 or 5 times since he was big enough to walk around, and he's almost 5. But at the same time, it's just not something you want to experience.
No,
if you can help
scary.
mitigate it.
Oh yeah.
And I think he's grown. Many people say you grow out of it as you age.
It reminds me of Justice growing up. She had I don't know what, terror, nightmare type things. I don't know what it was, but she would sleepwalk. And there was one time where she literally fell down the stairs, and it was horrific. In the middle of the night, she thought the house was on fire, and she was trying to get out and fell down the stairs in Germany. Yeah, it was so, and you know how terrible those stairs were right there in the living room. God. Yeah, so I know exactly what you mean. It's terrifying. It's traumatic to go through, and you always want to do it. And we got to where we were very obsessive, where we would not let her fall asleep. We figured out this pattern that if she'd fall asleep outside of her bed, like before,
that's when it would happen.
those are the nights that it would happen. So we made sure that she would never like fall asleep, take a nap before bedtime, and she wouldn't have any problems. So we were crazy about that. So I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. No, what I was saying real quick, and we're wrapping this up, but fear is what motivated me to really start investigating for myself. I did not like feeling fearful and out of touch with things and not really knowing. It's, I guess, a control thing. But I figured out at one point that I was so tired of allowing fear to control every aspect of my life. And the more research I did and the more informed I became, the less fearful I became. So that's honestly what has prompted this whole journey for me.
Knowledge is power.
It absolutely is. You know what I mean? So again, here we are back to the reasons that we're doing this podcast. So anyways, this was a really great one.
Man, it was long.
It was.
Talked about a lot of stuff.
We did. But it was good. So there you have it. There's your podcast. Be the change, people. I love you guys.
See ya.
You guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Random Thoughts Some Useful. If this spoke to your soul, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, share this with your friends and family, or even leave us a review. And come find me on all platforms at Apothecarying Jen so we can stay connected. Until next time, stay grounded, stay high vibe, and stay true to you.